Hello and welcome to another episode of the Black Male Impact. Today we have as guest Mr. John Brown. Mr. Brown, welcome to the Black Male Impact.
Thank you.
Yes, and before we get into the conversation itself, Mr. Brown is the Chief Operating Officer of the Government Employee Health Association. But I'll give Mr. Brown the opportunity to share more about himself and what he has been doing with you before we get into the conversation itself. Mr. Brown, please share with the listeners.
Thank you very much, and good morning. Thank you for the opportunity first to come and speak with you this morning on topics that are candidly of great importance for me on an individual basis. So again, John Brown, the Chief Operating Officer at GEHA. I was born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri, and with an undergrad in engineering, but going through the discipline of the engineering sort of teaching, it helped me with logic and with problem solving. And those were candidly skills that I found were very relevant and transferable in a lot of other areas. So I've, over the past 30 years, the majority of that time has been spent in operations, running large operations for several large companies. I transitioned to the HR space about 7 years ago, simply because I wanted to the opportunity to impact culture and impact the direction of an organization from the people perspective more directly. Although I had managed large numbers of people in the past, doing it from the HR space was one way that I felt I could really have an impact on culture and on a number of the elements that really have an impact on people of color. And then most recently was a transition to the Chief Operating Officer role with GEHA. So as I mentioned, born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri. My wife, Vanessa, will be celebrating 31 years the end of this month. We met in high school, and we've been together ever since. Right? And so I have an oldest daughter. Courtney is 28. She lives in Louisville, Kentucky, one of the cities that we lived in when we left in 92. We were away 30 years from home being Kansas City, moved back last year. So my oldest daughter is in Louisville, Kentucky. Courtney, one of the cities we lived in, and she's a social worker. And my youngest daughter, India, is 22. She's a nurse in Lafayette, Louisiana. We lived in Baton Rouge for 5 years prior to moving back home. So she went to college there, stayed there, and serving as a nurse. So my wife's a nurse. Vanessa, the youngest daughter's a nurse. My oldest daughter's a social worker. So I'm the failure of the family, right? I gotta get it together. So anyway, it's great being here. Great. I look forward to the conversation and really topics that I believe are of critical importance for many, and just helping connect some dots.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks for sharing, and happy anniversary.
Thank you.
And for 30 years, 30 plus years, that's an accomplishment in itself. So man, so that's awesome. So I don't think you fail, because you got to be playing your part to make sure that it stayed together. So I wouldn't consider you a failure. So that's really great. But as you mentioned in that when you were sharing your background, I know you talk about culture and the importance of culture in the organization. Could you share a little bit more what you mean about the culture, especially when it comes to us as Black people within different organizations?
Sure. So culture, candidly, it's one of those words that, depending on who you talk to, it means something a little different. See, I look at culture as it's the rules by which an organization navigates, right? And particularly for people of color, the culture of an organization tends to be one that mirrors the society that we live in. So it tends to be exclusive. You kind of have to know certain people in order to be recognized for great work. You tend to be disenfranchised or otherwise sort of, pushed to the back just because of color of skin or where you come from. So for me, it was really, really important to do first and foremost is to level the playing field. And when I say level the playing field, I simply mean the rules of engagement, the rules of the role, they apply the same for everyone. And so what I've been able to do over the past, more than 2 decades is by leveling the playing field, there has been a significant increase in the number of people of color who have been given opportunity. And it's not because John Brown, as a Black man, is hooking people up. As not a single hookup has occurred over my 30 years of professional work. It's been a leveling of the playing field. And what happens is when you level the playing field and you give people of color just an opportunity to compete fairly, we win our fair share, right? We don't win them all, but we win our fair share. So for me, it was really important to, number one, level the playing field. Number two, it was really important to let people around me know that I acknowledge that my being a black man and being in the role that I'm in, that I have a heightened responsibility. I don't hold myself to some make believe higher standard, but when I say a heightened sense of responsibility and accountability, which is given the challenges that exist in the corporate world now, for someone to get to the level that that I've been blessed to achieve, I've got to be really thoughtful that I don't mess it up for people behind me, right? And that's extra pressure I'll put on myself. But it really comes down to acknowledging that I've been blessed to be in the role that I'm in. It was not a hookup for me to get this job or a handout. I had to work hard. And you all know, like I know, that oftentimes you got to work harder, right, to get to the same thing that others get to who don't look like you. So for me, it was really a matter of making sure that when people see me in this role, I want them to see me for the role that I'm in, but I also want them to see me for the person that I am, to say, I'm that same guy. I've been accused over the years of, man, you're predictable. Now I call it consistent, right? The same John Brown you see on Monday morning is the same John Brown you see and talk to, same demeanor disposition on Friday afternoon. I have the same level of rapport with the CEO as I do with the person who takes out the trash, right? And who cleans the building. To me, there's absolutely no difference. And I need people to see that, man, if you can get to that level and still be relatable and still be someone that I can talk to and that I can actually get something from without any strings attached, right? I have been and serve as informal mentor to hundreds, literally, because unfortunately, when you get to certain levels, there are people, especially if we as men of color get the mindset that, okay, I've made it, so I got to somehow be the only one and relish in being the only one. That is dangerous. My goal is to achieve, be thankful for the achievement, and pave the way that others who look like me can also achieve when I'm done. Right. So it's getting prepared to hand the baton off to others who can again continue the work that was done before I got here, that will be done long after I'm gone, but I got to do my part. So to me, it's just it's life's work, and it's something that I take so seriously. I don't allow for things around me to easily derail what I'm trying to do.
Well, listening to you and the impact that you are having and how you take the work seriously, especially and when it comes to serving others, that shows your commitment to the work itself and to make a difference. And
Right,
that is really important when it comes to us and moving forward. Because
right,
yes, we do have an obligation to make sure the spaces that we are in is better than we found it, but also make it a space where others who look like us can be a part of. And I think that is
right,
important. And I really love how you share what culture means and how important it is within organization, because there are Black people who sometimes are well talented and have the
right.
capability to do great, but still sometimes don't get the opportunity
That's right.
to do the things that they are passionate about. So having someone there that understands the importance of having the inclusivity, but also to make sure the individuals who are there are able to
Right.
do the work that's needed is very, very important. So I really appreciate you sharing that. So I'm going to dive into the questions itself,
Sure.
being that this conversation is more so about us as Black men and what we can do to make a difference. So my first question is, what is the mindset that it takes to make a positive impact?
Wow, that's a good question. The mindset, I'll explain it, or I'll try to describe it in across two or three fronts, because I do think there are layers to it, right? The first is you got to want to, right? I don't know how else to put it. You have to want to make a difference. You have to want to be a person who is adding value positively to the lives of others and pouring into others. You just got to want to do it, and that's something that you can't teach in school. You can't. You have to want to do it. That's number one. Number two is you have to, I think, really personalize and internalize the value of doing it, right? So beyond just having a desire to do it, you have to be able to clearly see the benefit of providing those opportunities and providing support for others, especially given the environment that we're in. It does not take another business case. It does not take another news story. It does not take another book written about the challenges that Black men have faced in society for us to get it right and know that this has been and remains an uphill battle. It's not insurmountable. It's not reason to give up, but it means there has to be a level of fortitude, right? A level of desire to get it done that is above average. And I just think that those of us who have reached certain levels of success, it's back to the absolute commitment and absolute requirement from my personal perspective, which is to reach back, give back, make sure that whatever I'm learning along the way, that I'm taking notes and that I'm openly sharing those notes, right? I'm not saying that my journey is the same as anyone else's journey, but others may likely be able to learn from my journey, right? From both the good that I've done and the mistakes that I've made, right? And so to me, it starts again with you just got to want to do it. And to me, that's the ability to sort of sift out folks who are not in it for the right reason, right? There are many of us, unfortunately, and I'm talking about Black men who we've been smitten by the environment or culture around us, which is, every man for himself, right? You made it, so hooray, go celebrate, versus I made it. Now, what is my obligation to help someone else make it, right? And to me, that's my mindset that you either have it or you don't. If you don't have it, I'd encourage you to. This will be tough for someone who doesn't have that mindset, but surround yourself with people who get it, with people who understand that, because there's a level of just encouragement and a level of benefit that I receive by being around like-minded men who are just interested in doing good by other men, right? And making sure that for those who have an interest, have the skill to do it, look, the least I can do is point you in the right direction, give you some insight, help you get where it is that you want to go, and not just the passive, oh, you'll be okay, just go get a mentor, go do. No, I will individually contribute to your success in any way that I can, and that could be leveraging my resources, leveraging my contacts, right, on your behalf. Those are the kinds of things that I think we have to do and do more of going forward, because the nothing will be just given to us, and we won't ever have the easy path. But that's okay, because I honestly think that for a lot of us, if we will just pause for a moment and not get caught up in all the foolishness around us, we've, if anybody has the wherewithal and the intestinal fortitude to fight the good fight, I think it is us. Society and life has, I believe, trained us to be tougher than what we often give ourselves credit for. Doesn't make that the things we've gone through in life or in society right, but the reality is when you go through difficult times, it makes you stronger if you allow it to. And because we have gone through as a people so much, I believe there's been no shortage of opportunity for us to grow stronger. Yes, be disappointed, frustrated, angry, all those things that society causes us to feel from time to time. But I would ask us to not forget that in that also lies strength. We have been conditioned over time to deal with adversity and deal with negativity and still come out shining on the other side. And that's the thing that I believe we have an opportunity to make sure that others can see for what it is, take advantage of it to the extent that they can, and ultimately grow.
And that is awesome. I really appreciate that perspective. And we all need to hear that, especially us taking responsibility for where
Right,
we are, and
right,
also realize that life itself have been strengthening us
that's right,
for the journey we're on. And you're
right,
right. We sometimes don't give ourselves credit for our strength, for our persistency, for
right,
our grit, and
right,
just to show up in life and do the things that we are doing, being that there are so many challenges and obstacles and hurdles that we sometimes have to go over to get
right,
to where we want to be. But you share
right,
a very interesting point that we really need to adhere to as Black men when we're in the positions where we can be of help or support to others. We need to. We cannot
Absolutely.
and should not think that I've made it and you have to work your way to make it.
Right.
We have to get there and be door openers for others, because if you have gone through it, you know what it's like. And
Right.
even if you haven't personally, you have seen so many of us who have to struggle to get to opportunities that sometimes we're even more
That's
qualified
right.
for.
That's right.
So, man, that is really important and a valid point, and it cannot be said enough.
Agree.
If we're going to
Totally
move
agree.
forward, we have to be our brother's keeper.
That's right.
We have to be in the positions where we see the value of helping each other to go forward. Again, man, I really appreciate you sharing that perspective,
Sure.
because it is needed to be said, and we can't say it enough.
Agreed.
So my next question is, what advice, and I know you may have shared it to some extent in your what you just shared, but what advice do you have for the men listening and how they can play a role in creating positive change?
Yeah, so I'd offer up these few things. They're not in rank order, and they're so first is I would ask every man, every brother to just pause for a moment and just acknowledge that we have been supported by someone, right? We are where we are because of the hard work of someone else, whether that was directly supporting us or whether we are literally or figuratively standing on the shoulders before us, right? And I think the first thing is we just have to acknowledge that, because that allows for us to retain a level of humility, right? It's never the point of, look at me, I've arrived, right? Let me pop my collar. Let me do. You, we have to be very careful, because the society that we live in will tell us that once you get to a certain level, whether that is your job title, your annual earnings, what you drive, or what you live, or where you live, that somehow you are in this sacred circle of people that is somehow better than the rest, right? And we have to be very careful that we don't fall into that, because it's society will nudge us there. Society will sometimes forearm shiver us over there, right? Which is just how you have to think, right? Once you get here. So the first is we have to acknowledge that we are where we are because of someone else's sacrifice, because of someone else's pain and suffering, and someone else's hard work. And as a result, I cannot ever adopt the attitude that I'm here on my own. Oh, and by the way, because I've made it, whatever made it is, I don't have to do anything to help anybody else, because that's not how I got here. Second thing is we have to acknowledge that if we were to, and you mentioned the term, and I agree, because there's a lot of corporate and life principles that, again, I'm a married man of 30, nearly 31 years. I'm a Christian man, right? I'm a just saying, so there are certain principles that, again, I pull from the source called the Bible, right? And that's, again, I'm not imposing anything on anyone, just saying there are certain things that guide how I think and how I move about. This concept of being my brother's keeper, so very, very critical. Again, because society will not instill that in us. Society will tell us that you got to go for yours, get yours, every man for himself. That's what society teaches us. It takes a very different mindset to acknowledge that not only must I have a desire and want and know that I'm standing on the shoulders or the hard work of someone else, I have to be able to quantify in my own mind, right? Whatever works for me, the sheer value of me pouring into someone else. There are young men coming behind us, young Black men who, when they are looking for role models, I have heard it for decades, right? My entire life. We Black men will often criticize young Black men for idolizing athletes, for idolizing rappers, for idolizing those who are in the entertainment industry. And I've never looked at it that way, not to penalize the young person for looking. They are doing what young people do. They're looking for someone who is emulating or otherwise displaying something that is of value to them.
Correct.
If I'm going to criticize, and I choose not to criticize anybody in this, because this is that we live in a society where there's so much negativity and so much stuff to pull us off track that I don't have time to bash my brother, right? I don't have time to criticize my brother. There's too much work to do to lift him up and to encourage him and to be a role model. But instead of being mad at the young brothers for idolizing these images or entities that, oh, those of us who are older might say, man, that's the wrong path, then step up,
Correct.
be a light, be an example, be the role model where you can have young people saying, you know what, I don't want to be like fill in the blank entertainer rapper. I want to be like John Brown, right? Because he's got one wife, right? He's committed to that one wife. He talks about that one wife in the presence of all so that they know I'm not about any foolishness, right? I got one wife. Don't bring me no mess, right? I got two kids, right? From my one wife. Don't bring me no mess, right? I work on a job where I work hard, and I'm proud of the work that I do, but I work hard, and I want to be. I want folks to acknowledge that it's just about the working hard. Whatever title or not comes, that's secondary. I want to be known for working hard, showing up on the job, doing what is expected of me, and doing it to the best of my ability. Even if I'm not the best to do it, I'm giving them my best every day. When I do that on a consistent basis, that's why it is I don't have to be upset and salty about a kid who is looking up to an athlete or a rapper, because it is, if I'm doing my job the way I ought to, I'm gonna get a little airspace too, right? Not out of pride, but it is, yeah, you might look up to this person, but guess what? I want to be the guy who young professionals, young men are looking up to say, I want to be like him. And why? For the same reason they look up to the others, which is they're doing something that either I want to do or they're doing something that is of value, and working hard and taking care of your family and doing it in a moral and ethical way is worth emulating. We just have to do our part, as older Black men, to make that, put that in perspective for the younger generation. And the last thing I'll say about how is we then have to be very both strategic but also very tactical, right? This thing is not a spectator sport, man. All right, it's a contact sport. We have to just commit to getting in contact with others, right? Literally hand to hand. If you are not mentoring someone else in the workplace or a younger brother, you are missing an opportunity. And candidly, I'll just say you ain't doing your part. All right. If you are not out helping reset the mindset of our younger Black generation, and even those who are in our own era, if we're not out working every day trying to reset the narrative, trying to share the value of doing what it is we're attempting to do and why, and being very clear that I know this is opposed to what might be on TV and radio or social media, but that's the important part about it. That's what I'm competing against. Something that is out here that is in high volume, that has the ability to erode the mind and consciousness of our own Black men, as well as those young Black men coming behind us. So the fight is never over, which is why there's such a level of vigilance around, I got to do my part. So if there's anyone that's listening now that is not mentoring, that is not giving back in some tangible way, then I'm calling you to step up, because this is a lifelong fight, and it gets burdensome at times, especially when you look to your left or your right and you don't see a bunch of folks there. Right? Again, this is not about pointing fingers or being critical. It's simply saying this is a fight that requires us all, and we can all do something. We don't all have to do the same thing, but we can all do something. And when we all reach in and do our own part, we can look back and say, yeah, I can rest tonight because I did the best that I could do. But I looked to my left and my right and saw other brothers who were doing their part, and can say, yeah, when you group us all together and look at what we are collectively doing, we at least can look folks in the eye and say, we did our part. I don't know how much difference it'll make in the long run, but I feel much better about doing my part and being comfortable with whatever the outcome is than sitting back and waiting for somebody else to do it, sitting back being critical of what other folks are not doing. I don't choose that path. It is, I'm going to do my part, and I'm going to do it as long as there's breath in me, and we'll see how things pan out.
Man, thank you again for sharing that thought, because man, you share so much in that which you just shared. It could be the entire conversation today, from us doing our part, from us realizing that we have to step up and not criticize each other for what someone is doing or what someone is not doing. How important it is for us to be that example.
Right.
And as you mentioned, yes, they may look up to the athletes because that's what they see, that's what is
Right.
shared to them mostly. But they can see a Black man in their community who are living a certain standard and
That's right.
want to be that. And you're right. Sometimes we may say, They always want to be the athletes. Yes, they're seeing that. But we have an obligation, as you mentioned, that we have to be the example. And I try to do it, especially when I'm at work, right? People always see me in the suits. They say, man, why are you always in suits? They think I'm just wearing the suit just to be in suits.
Yeah.
But I know there's a lot of Black male students, especially, who don't have the role models, who don't see anyone in suits that's directly connected to them. And they themselves never have wear a suit. So you can be that example where you are and do the work that will inspire them to want to do something different.
That's
and then, because they may not realize that there's more out there if we don't do our part. And because we can complain as much as we want with what society is not doing, but that's not going to create a change. We have to realize that we have to play a part in creating the change. We have to realize that we can contribute to the change that we want to see. And, you know, with, you know, how you shared it, you know, that's something that we need to hear and realize that we cannot and should not wait for someone else to do for us what we can do, especially when we want to inspire and empower the next generation of young men. So I really appreciate your perspective and your insights in and how we can create positive change, because it is needed in our communities, and we have to realize that we have to play a role in making those changes. And this next question somewhat relates to both of your response so far, but I'm still going to ask it. How can we, as Black men, help to change the narrative? And it can be any narrative, from you know, family, from work, whatever. How can we change the narrative that society have paint about us?
Yeah, that's again, all very good questions, and I appreciate having this conversation today. So the first thing, you know, not to steal from Nike, but just do it, right? That's number one. Just do it. There's a lot of conversation around the negative narratives, or how things sort of go off the you know, off the square when it comes to Black men and the Black community, the Black family. And the first thing that I would say to all of us, and this is things that I live by myself, which is just start changing the narrative. And we have to change the narrative a number of very tactical and very specific ways. One is what we speak. We have to be very careful that we don't fall into the trap of perpetuating some of the negative narratives that are out there. And sometimes we do it unknowingly. Sometimes we do it knowingly, right? It's the path of least resistance, right? Sometimes it's easier just to continue saying negative, bad things about each other because it just goes along with the group, right? We don't want to bring any extra pressure on ourselves. So just go along with it. So first is, we have to just do it. We have to do it through the words that we speak. We actually do it even more so, but it applies as well. It's in our actions, right? Think about all the negative things that circulate about Black men in particular. We have an opportunity in the way that we live to either support that narrative or to blow it up, right? Every chance we get. And like you said, you intentionally wear the suits in certain environments because it helps change a narrative that would otherwise be negative, right? People will see Black men as, okay, they don't dress a certain way. They don't speak a certain way. They don't behave a certain way. Well, how do you change the narrative? By doing something different. Just do it, right? Show them, give them the opportunity to see us in a way that we just need to be seen, right? I was part of an organization a few years back where their logo or slogan was, what they see is what they'll be, right? And if you think about that on any number of levels, it is, okay, that means that, again, I can acknowledge that I'm not perfect. I wake up every day wanting to be. I failed every day, right? But the good news is I'm going to get up tomorrow and I'm going to attempt to be perfect, right? I'll fail again tomorrow, but I'm going to get up the next day trying to do it again. The key is that narrative, whatever it is, especially when we see it, and whether we're in the workplace, in the community, there's some of those negative narratives that, man, they play out so obviously and so vigorously that we have to individually make a decision. Do I sit idly back or quietly and say or do nothing, right? Or do I exercise courage and do I speak up? Or do I go ahead and show this side of me being, I need them to see and know that what they see on TV, again, we Black men, we are for generations, right? We're fighting a societal set of norms and stereotypes that are at times feel impossible to overcome. Then you overlay that with stereotypes and other challenges that are in the music that is in the mainstream, social media as the mainstream. Man, I can't tell you the number of times where there are certain things, and this is again, I can just speak about my own experience and not intending it to be anyone else's. There are certain things that I won't allow myself to watch or listen to because it perpetuates a negative stereotype or narrative that I want to be able to look myself in the mirror and say, I didn't contribute to that, right? I did not support that. I didn't support it by being a viewer on the Nielsen rating, right? I didn't support it by being a like on social media, right? Or being a view on social media. I'm not going to do it, right? And that's a personal choice because when I see some of the stereotypes and some of the negative narratives that still exist for people of color, and even in particular Black men, it's no wonder that we continue to have such an uphill struggle. If you look in the workplace, there are times when I've had to. I'm 6'3". I played football in high school and in college. I'm 6'3". I have had the narrative angry the angry Black man. I've had that said to me over the years where I had to say, okay, so when I speak passionately, it's described as anger. But when my white counterpart speaks passionately, it's called that. It's called passion. He was passionate about the topic. I was somehow angry. But why is that? Why is the definition term? Because anger is very different than passion when it's being perceived by the words being used by others. And so it is, okay, I have a choice to make, right? It can be to heck with it. I'm going to do what I do. And sometimes I go there because it's necessary, but other times it is, okay, guess what? Here's what I can do. If y'all, right, the norm, the culture, whatever it is, are put off by that, here's what I'll do. I'll sit back in my chair. I'll lower my voice, but I'm going to say the same thing that I said before. And I'm doing this just to see how are you all going to react. Here's what I found. It didn't matter, right? Wow. When I sat back in the chair, lowered my voice, because others were uncomfortable by how I showed up with my passion many years ago. I found that, you know what, whether I leaned into the conversation and was very passionate about a topic, because for me, it was important to be passionate about that topic. And I'm not passionate about every topic, but on those, it was important for me to be passionate. And once I realized that, you know what, it doesn't matter if I lean in and speak passionately, or if I sit back and talk softly, they, whomever that they are going to perceive me a certain way anyway. Then it is, okay, John, you get to be comfortable in your skin. Do what you think is best, right? And so I've been able to move in that direction for many years now, and that has bode well for me because now all people get to see me again, whether it's Saturday morning, Thursday afternoon, Tuesday evening. They see a consistent me, one that will have no problem being courageous and speaking up on topics that need to be spoken on. Because again, unfortunately, still in corporate circles, there are so few of us at times at certain levels where if I don't use my voice to speak up on topics of importance for people of color, for Black men, it will never be spoken at the decision table, right? It will never be considered. Well, what is this? Is this policy? Is this process unintentionally or intentionally detrimental to people of color, to customers who are Black and brown? Is anybody thinking about how these words will resonate with our Black and brown customers? How this will resonate here or there? Well, if we unfortunately are a select few in certain levels, again, it goes back to a must. In order to change the narrative, we have to be willing to be courageous and to speak up. And I can speak up with professionalism, right? I can speak up in a way that it fits the cultural norm for the most part. But I am also willing to get into necessary and good trouble, right? By speaking up on things that are not popular and things that are going to ruffle feathers. I'm okay with that too, because as I said, if I won't do it, who's going to? And so I think it really is a matter of taking the ownership of saying, you know what, this is something that has to be done. And we individually as Black men, we just have we have to own the fact that if it is to be, it's up to me, right? Now, will I really be the only one doing it? Of course not. But I have the attitude that if it's going to be, it's up to me. And if we each had that attitude, I think we would start to see some very specific things change for the positive, because the groundswell and sheer volume of us doing this positive thing to modify narrative, the narrative will have no choice if not change. Because as I said, I can't change the narrative of other grown folk. Really, I've tried. But what I can do is create a narrative that if you're going to listen or look at this, I got something else for you to consider, right? That has as much popularity, as much visibility and viewership as this other negative narrative. And the more I can get people to spin up over here on this true and more accurate narrative, sometimes that's the best I can do. I can't always make the negative narrative go away, but I can put a very competent and a very relevant alternative on the table, right? That is really more true and reflective. That guess what? I can say now, y'all need to look at this one over here, right? Yeah, you got this one. You've had this one for years. I'm giving you another one. I'm giving you options. And now I put the pressure back on others to say, it's up to you now. You see this. You see two very different things presented to you. Choose you, right, this day, what you're going to do, right? And it puts some pressure back on society.
Again, man, I just love how you phrase your response. And it's what we need to hear as Black men, especially thinking about changing the narrative. You have shared so many points, nuggets in your response from us realizing how important it is that we don't circulate the negative that is about us. Sometimes I've seen several people sharing it and said, you know what, this is not what we don't need to do. But guess what? You share it, more people are seeing it. So if we think it's what we are not supposed to do, ignore it. And just like how you said and what you have done, I myself, I try not to share it or even view it, because I know that's going to add to the viewership and it's going to reach more people. We have to be mindful of what we are doing and what we are spending time on, because if we want to change the narrative, we have to make sure we're not contributing to what we want to change. In a sense, in a negative way. We have to, if we want to change it, we have to do more of the positive so we can counteract the negative stereotypes and labels, especially when it comes to us as Black men.
That's right.
And we just have to realize how important it is for us to play our part, as you mentioned also, where it's easier to become what you see. So we have to realize that for the next generation to become something else other than the negative stereotypes, we have to show them by being the example. And also, which I really like what you shared, be courageous in our contribution. Because if we don't, who else is going to do it for us? And be okay with ruffling the feathers, as you mentioned, because sometimes we have to make those who are not in favor of us being our best self and making progress a bit uncomfortable, because if we don't, they will not even take a look on what needs to change for us to really excel and thrive within certain space. So if no one is there to speak up, they are not going to look at what needs to be done to change the culture, for one. Because the policies and practices have been so ingrained, they may not, it's comfortable for them. So, but it's uncomfortable for people of color, for Black people. And if no one is there to speak up, to shed light on what needs to change, it will continue. So it's important, as you mentioned, for us as Black men, especially when we're in spaces and we know that something needs to change, we don't sit back just because we're okay with our pay. Because it's not really about us. It's about who else is going to be coming after us. Because even for us to be in those spaces, someone had to speak up. So we don't get there and become comfortable. That's a disrespect, I believe, to the people who have done the work for us to be in the positions that we are in. So we have to and should want to speak up. So I really appreciate, man, your perspective and your insights. And how we can play a part in changing the narrative. And I'm going to go straight into the next question. And is, what or who has inspired you to pursue the path that you're on?
Wow. there's no single person who's been an inspiration. I candidly have garnered inspiration from wherever I can get it, right? And so I have to start with my immediate family, parents, siblings, who even through their challenges or struggles, it helped push me on a path, right? I grew up in a very poor family, so we didn't have money, but we had other things that money couldn't buy, and so it helped shape me into really focusing on the things that are most important, right? So that's why material things, they don't mean much to me, right? I much more value an honest word, right? I much more value someone being truthful and someone being connected, right? The things that money can't buy. I can look at many people that I've worked with over the years, many who I've served within the community over the years, and it's the individuals who have just been very earnest and diligent about attempting to be their best selves, right? I don't look to the high ranking or the high authority. I get my inspiration from folks who are in the trenches, so to speak, grinding every day like I am, just trying to do their best, right? And so I will give credit again to my immediate family, who have always been an inspiration. As I said, even when what they did wasn't always good, but seeing someone else go down a bad path was helpful because it was, don't go down that path, right? And so they have been able to, in some ways intentionally, other ways unintentionally, steer me to where I am now, because growing up in a household or in an environment where there were a lot of negative things going on, it helped me see that I don't want that, right? I don't want to do that. And so very helpful. Give credit to my wife and my kids, right? Who have been equally responsible for helping remind me of why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? I have to look them in the face and be able to say, did me as husband, did me as dad, did I do right by folks that I came in contact with? Have I played fairly? Have I provided opportunity where appropriate? Have I stood up for the things that I need to stand up for? Have I taken the losses graciously? Have I won graciously? Right? All of those things. I have people in my circle, and I'm not one who is built on followers and all that. I don't care about any of that stuff. Right? What I do is want to have a select few people around me who are going to be true. True being like a true friend. Don't tell me what I want to hear. Tell me what I need to hear, right? In the workplace, I need people around me, and I need just a select few who are going to say, "Hey, John, you were off base on that, man," or you can't, you got to modify that message, or you got to modify the approach. That's what I need, and that's what I'm looking for, and that's why I've attempted to, and would encourage other brothers to. You don't have to look long and hard. You just can't let society dictate who that circle needs to be. Society would say, no, you should only, it's this, it's that. No, you surround yourself with people any age who are going to be good for you, help you be your best self, and that you can pour into for them to be their best self. You surround yourself with a select few folks like that. You'll be the best that you can expect to be, and be comfortable with that, whatever it is, right? Where society doesn't get to dictate what happiness is for me. Society doesn't get to dictate what success is for me. I get to dictate that, and as a result, I get to be content and comfortable in spaces that others might not be, because I'm not trying to chase anyone. I'm not trying to be like anyone. I'm trying to be my best self. And once I can feel comfortable that I'm being my best self, whatever that is, then I'm good.
Thanks again for sharing that with us. As you said, with inspiration, or who inspired us, as you said, with your family and the people around you. So there is a plethora of people that contributed to where you are right now.
Right.
But you said something that I believe is very important and valuable for all of us. And it is, and it kind of slipped me a bit a while ago, but I'll just continue to talk about that you said. But as people, we are, the people that's close to us, yes, of course, will inspire us. But the thought came back to me now. And it is not only what is good that's happening around us that really inspire us and help us to make decisions, but also the things that we see as not the right thing, help us to
That's
choose
right.
not to do those
Absolutely.
things.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people sometimes don't realize how important that can be. We
Right.
can see something bad happening and say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. So let me choose to do something different because I want to have a different experience.
That's
And a
right.
lot of times people may miss the opportunity to learn from the bad that's happening around them
Right.
and choose to do something different. So that is really important and a great reminder to the listeners to, yes, learn from the people that's doing great around us, but also look what's not happening in the way that will help us to make progress
That's right.
and choose to do something different. And I
Right.
think that's something that is worth remembering, especially for the next generation coming, because yes, you can say, you know what, oh, I didn't have the right example, but you can
Right.
use the next and say, you know what, I'm going to choose to do something different.
Absolutely. That's
You
right.
know, so you can become who society may not think you should be based on your environment, but you can always choose to do something different. So thanks
That's
for
right.
sharing that perspective. So my next question is, what is your perspective on the current climate of Black men in society today?
Yeah. So this, it's a relative question. Relative meaning, it depends on who you ask. So you're asking me. So I'm telling you, here's my view of the plight or the circumstance situation with Black men. On one hand, I think we're in the best position that we've been in my lifetime, right? Meaning there are opportunities that are out there that, and I see Black men excelling in positions of authority. I see Black men excelling in the community, Black men excelling in their homes. And so, on one hand, I think things are as good as, if not better, than they have ever been. But I'm not naive enough to say that we still don't have a tremendous amount of challenge out there still in front of us, right? When I look at the things that, again, whether it's stereotype or whether it's just things that I see playing out every day for Black men across the country, we've got a tremendous amount of work to do. I've lived in several cities over the past 30 years. Interestingly enough, every city that we've lived in, there's been some legislation on the books to build a new prison, which I just find just mind-boggling, right? Again, every city that we've lived in over the past 30 years, there's been some work being done to build a new prison.
Wow.
And if you connect that with the number of the percentage of prisons that are filled with Black men, it's just a sobering thought, right? And so this is not an indictment on Black men. Not It's just saying that we as Black men, as good as I think things are and can be for us, it's also not lost on me that we have a tremendous number of our Black men that are incarcerated, that are undereducated, that are underserved, that are dealing with stressors and challenges that force our hand in terms of mental health and other challenges that are going on. So this really comes down to our thing. I have to choose. I attempt to look at it as broadly and as objectively as possible, and in doing so, I can see and acknowledge the good and where there have been improvements, but I also can acknowledge and see that there are some elements of the experience of the Black man that are worse than they have ever been. Right? When I think about the challenges and the the different opportunities for challenge. Right? I was talking to a group of young men a couple weeks ago, and I just shared with them that I don't know. I'm glad I grew up when I grew up, right? I was saying to a group of young Black men, I would not want to be young now, right? I shared with them that when I grew up at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, TV went off, right? I mean, it just went off. There were no more stations. You had 4 or 5 local stations, and at midnight, there was no more TV, right? You got the little bars across the screen, and that was it. There was just nothing else to watch. There was no, I grew up in an era where, I mean, cable came along, but even before cable, you had local TV. It went off. So you went to bed, read a book. You didn't, now nothing turns off. You have access 24/7 to whatever you want. And most that's out there is not good. And so it's back to how and what do we do? I think we as Black men have to acknowledge that pressures, the challenges that are starting with our very young Black boys is no different than the challenges when we think about slavery. We think about what Black men had to go through on plantations with seeing their wives and their daughters killed and raped and all, and had to hold it together with no counseling, with no any support. It's not a surprise to me that when people go through trauma and there's no support, they could act in any number of ways, right? I see us in general as a group of people, Black men, that is, who have experienced, for all intents and purposes, lifelong trauma. And the question becomes, how many of us are getting any help, right? Are getting support? And some of that support and help, I'm not looking to the government to provide. I mean, great if they would provide some support. Some of that is taking the onus on ourselves to say, look, I'm not going to fall into this negative stereotype that getting counseling and talking to someone is bad, right? Black men don't tend to go to the doctor, right? For any number of reasons. Black men don't tend to go seek counseling because of the negative persona. I'm saying, man, forget all that, Black men. You need to go see the doctor on a regular basis because there are things that impact us that don't impact other men. That unless you go and you get treatment and you let them check you out, you're a walking time bomb, right? And don't even know it. And if you can't be healthy, how are you going to be there for your family? How are you going to be there for the community? If you need assistance because you're having mental health challenges, see a counselor. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't let society tell you that there's something wrong with that. Go seek help so that you can be your best self, not only for you, but also acknowledging that you also are here for others, whether you have a family or whether you're here for the community, you are here for a bigger purpose. But you have to take responsibility, right? And do the things that you have to do. Otherwise, you're gonna come up short, and you're gonna have a bunch of folks who are now at even a tougher spot because you are no longer there, able to be that role model, that rock, that provider, that counselor, that friend that people are counting on you to be. And so that's something that I would just encourage us to do. Black men, we gotta step up, and we gotta step into the stand in the gap, right? Do what is required of us, because if we don't do it, nobody's going to do it for us. And there's certain things we've just allowed over time to roll into this. No, I can't do that. I'd rather sit back and suffer with physical issues than to go see a doctor where there could be a treatment, a pill, some therapy that could make you better. We're going through things mentally. We think about all that we go through, and we don't talk to people, and so that stuff builds up, and then it comes out usually in the form of anger or violence or just depression, either towards ourselves or towards others, which is that could be avoided, right? It's not that there's a silver bullet or quick fix, but get the help that you need, because there's nothing wrong with getting help. You show strength and courage by acknowledging that there's a challenge and getting help. It is not strong, it is not courageous to suffer in silence. That is not courage. So I'm encouraging our Black men to go get help, physical, mental, social, get whatever help you need so that you can be the best man you can be.
Man, that's great, great share from acknowledging that, yes, we have made many strides forward in what we have accomplished over the years, but also where you acknowledge that we still need to realize that there are voids that we need to fill, where
Right.
we have to step up to get the support to take advantage of what is provided so we can get or to become who we are capable of being. Yes,
That's right.
there are things that we cannot control, as you mentioned, where there are policies and things being put on in when it comes to politics, especially you mentioned about the prison, that we cannot control that really. But we have to realize that if there are resources out here for us, we have to take advantage of those resources and don't let, because of what society have told us or told us, that for you as a Black man asking for help is a sign of weakness.
Right.
But when you really look at it, still sign of it should be strength, because it does take a lot to be vulnerable to other people, to say,
That's
man,
right.
I need help in this area. I need support in this area. But over time, we have been conditioned to think that asking for help or seeking those counseling something bad. And so I really appreciate you reminded us how important it is to take care of ourselves.
Right.
Yes, there are Black men who are doing great. And as you mentioned, we may be doing better now than we have done previously.
Right.
But we still have a lot of work to do. We must realize that we have to play a part in changing that narrative, or to for us to become the best version of ourselves.
Right.
So I really appreciate you sharing it. So my next question is, what change do you want to see in general amongst Black men? And I think you kind of answered that question from us realizing that we have to want to change want to create change, and also to take advantage of the resources to become our best selves. But what change do you want to see amongst us?
So you're right. I did touch on a few of those earlier. We'll just throw in a couple of other things that I framed what I would love to see. I would love to see Black men really unite together more than what we have. This is not an indictment saying we don't unite now. I'm just saying I would love for us to come together more. There are so many things that we share in common, and so much that we can gain by leveraging the collective, attitude, the collective insight from us as Black men. I'd love for us to just come together more and come together more across all socioeconomic circles, whatever you want to call it, right? I don't want the Black men who are executives in companies to come together as a group, and then the Black students, right, in college to come together over here, and then no, I need us all. I would like for us all to come together more, because I think the more we come together, we share, we learn and grow from the sharing, but we also learn. As I mentioned, I am a fan of and a product of getting guidance and counsel and input from wherever I can get it. And sometimes that is if we listen to the younger generation, right? Younger Black men. I believe they've got a story to tell us, right? I believe there's some things they would tell us that as older Black men, we would say, okay, I hear you. There's some things that you really could use from me as an older Black man that, okay, now it's up to me to deliver it to you or not. Young Black men, I think for them to hear certain messages from older Black men, that's not about putting them down, about how they dress. And I mean, there's some wisdom and counsel that should always be shared if something is off track. But I mean, there's for our younger Black men to know that you're a resource. I can actually talk to you. And your first thing isn't judgment, right? It is listening, because there's nobody else that's listening. That's why I'm over here with these folks, because at minimum, they listen to me. I would love for us to come together more. And when we come together, I'd love for us to have conversation that is more around just that, listening. What can we learn from each other? What can we do collectively? Because oftentimes, and again, I believe it's unintentional, but it happens where you got us older Black men that stand in the position of, look, I've arrived. I got all the answers. It's my responsibility to tell y'all younger brothers what to do and what not to do, because I done been there, done that. I'm saying no. And you got the younger brothers that are really just looking for, I just want somebody I can talk to. I want to be there wherever there is, but I can't get that insight over here. I can only get it from y'all over here, older Black men. But when I come and talk to y'all got this condescending, y'all just beating up on me because my hair is braided, right? You're beating up on me because my pants are sagging. And so to me, it is we, by coming together, number one. Two, when we come together, can we come together for the sole purpose of learning from each other and growing? Because there are things that our young Black men are looking for that they can't get from anyone but us. There are things that us older Black men, nuggets of wisdom and knowledge that we have, that it doesn't have any value with anyone except for our younger Black men. And if we can't come together and give and receive in a way that's going to be mutually beneficial, it doesn't matter. Older Black men are sitting on knowledge and insight that is doing absolutely nothing, because it's not even connecting with the younger Black men who are going to be able to use that info, because they're the only ones who can follow that path that we're on, right? Where this stuff even applies. You got younger Black men that are really crying out for, can I just get some, can you just HBO, right? Help a brother out, right? Can you just help me navigate through this crazy world that I'm in? Us having been there, it is, why wouldn't we focus on, let me help you navigate? It's not a guarantee that you're not going to have pitfalls, hurdles, challenges, but at least I can share with you the cliff notes, the path that I was on. And we just got to do more of that. Second thing, and that was really one or two. The other thing is that for Black men, I'd also really like for us to acknowledge and internalize that we are more fit and more equipped, prepared for this than we give ourselves credit for, right? I've spent the past 25, 30 years encouraging, especially young Black men coming up professionally, to remind them. And I've gone very tactical with this at times, which is, when they share with me challenges they're having on the job, I've gone as far as to say, okay, this thing you're going through on the job, let's talk it through. Okay. Now, let me show you how you've gone through this for various times in your life. You're not equating the two, but this thing that's going on in the workplace, you've already been there and done that. It's just something that you grew up with and saw on the block, right? There were different people, different circumstances, but it's the same process. What you learned on the block, right? What you learned in the hood, what you learned just coming through up through life over here, that's the same stuff going on in the workplace. You just got different people that are wearing different clothes, that are using slightly different words, but it's the same thing. I would like for us to be encouraged as Black men to know that we are more prepared and more equipped for this thing than we're giving ourselves credit for. We have let society tell us that we're not smart enough, we're not savvy enough, we're whatever enough. And I'm saying society is dead wrong, right? I've seen far too many of us that is, man, you know, when I can equate that what this thing you just experienced on the job is what you experienced on the block, and how you navigated and thought through how to work this thing out is the same methodology you're going to use to work this out on the job. I have helped encourage a large number of Black men to at least be confident enough to know that, okay, this really is 1985 all over again. I've been there, done that, right? It's just a different setting, and we're doing it around an oval table, and everybody's got on suits versus doing it here. It's the same thing. I want us to, as Black men, to have more confidence and awareness that we're built for, we got this, right? Yeah, it's tough, but we got this. And the more of us that can truly internalize that, we start to step into situations with a level of confidence and a level of belief that will only bode well for us versus going in afraid, going in uncertain, unsure. And so I hope us and wish us to be a more confident group of Black men, and not just because I hope it or wish it, but because I think we're actually more equipped and prepared than what we give ourselves credit for. We just have to work on, let me show you how you were really prepared for this or how you dealt with this before. It just wasn't called this, what it's called on the job. It was called this over here, but you dealt with it and you're going to overcome it the same way.
Man, again, thanks for sharing. From us coming together, which I believe is really important as a change when it comes to us as Black men. I think together we are stronger, and together we can move the needle much further and much faster if we work together. But you also shared, which I believe is really valuable, where the older generation of Black men have knowledge and insight that they can share with the next generation or the younger generation.
That's right.
That it's not happening. So there is a disconnect. So the things that the older generation have learned and have overcome can help this current generation or generations to come how to navigate this space and to be successful at navigating this space. Because if you don't know, you may give up when you shouldn't, and you may be passive when you should be a more assertive. So there are things that the next generation or this current generation may not know how to handle because they are inexperienced. And older generation who have gone through the process know what it's like to be neglected, know what it's like to not given the resources to be successful, but have overcome it and able to achieve certain level of success. Just to share with the young men how to deal with these kind of challenges, especially in some work environment where there may not be as many Black people or Black men who they can talk to about the challenges. Because as you mentioned before, some of us, some Black men go in spaces and when they reach a certain level, they forget that they have a responsibility to be that guide for those who are coming behind them. So I really appreciate that perspective, and I hope the listeners who are much older realize how important a role they can play. Because some people may think even they may not in the highest position, so I don't have nothing of value to share. experience is more valuable
Absolutely.
than
That's
the
right.
position itself, because
That's right.
life experiences teaches you things that you're not going to learn in the position. You
That's
have
right.
to be in the position for a while to gain certain experience
That's
or
right.
lessons, which is valuable.
Right.
So it's not the position, it's the life lessons that have been learned that needs to be passed on to us, that's
Right.
coming to be in those positions later of leadership, of whatever role that we're going to play, to gain insights on how we can best serve and how we can navigate our way forward so we can be the best for those who are coming behind us.
Right.
So I really appreciate that perspective. I think it's really important that we know that, well, the older generation actually knows that they have something of value to share and how important it is for us to come together so
Right.
we can move the needle forward. So my next question is, what was a pivotal moment in your life?
Yeah, it's another one that there have been many pivotal moments. If I had to maybe pick one, it's even tough picking one, but I'll say it's you know, coming out of college. So again, I grew up in Kansas City, played football in high school. I went away to Kansas State University to play football a couple of years out of high school. But because of injuries, I stopped playing football and I couldn't afford school. I mean, that college. So I had to come back home and graduated from a technical college, DeVry Institute of Technology, it's called. I think it's DeVry University now. I don't know. I think it's been a long time ago. But one pivotal moment was I'm back, I graduate, electrical engineering degree. I'm in a leadership development program right out of college at Southwestern Bell. And I'm sitting around the table with other individuals in this leadership development program, and they all, when you typically you start a meeting, you go around the room and you give your name. Because this was right out of college, they wanted you to tell the school that you graduated from, right, your degree. And so you go around the table and you have all of these folks who are who graduated from these prestigious universities, right, with these highfalutin sounding degrees and all. And it was intimidating early on. Intimidating, just being, I was ashamed, candidly is the word. I was ashamed that it gets to me. I'm John Brown. I graduated from DeVry Institute of Technology. You can tell people around the room are like, graduated from an Institute of Technology, right? Huh? What is that? Where is that? You get that around the room. And so there was a part of me that was, I was didn't want to do introductions because I felt inferior. And I recall being in conversation. This ties back to something we talked about before. I recall being in a conversation, talking to a group of young people. I was young then. I was right out of college, 22, 23. Recall talking to some folks sort of my age and kind of complaining about, man, we have these introductions and folks looking at me crazy because, they graduated from MIT or Harvard or these big schools. And I graduate, I get to me and it is, I want to mumble, DeVry. I don't even want to say the school because I can just feel the room sort of like, yeah, who's this guy here? And I remember vividly someone in that circle of people I was talking to saying, but you're in the meeting with them, right?
Wow.
Yeah. But you're around the table with them, making decisions with them at those important schools, right? Yeah. So what's your problem, bruh? Right? This was in that. So what's your problem? And so from that moment on, I couldn't wait for introductions, right? And it's not that, oh, now I'm just so proud, but it was I belong, right? And belong just meaning I have earned the right to be here in this moment, in this spot. I didn't have to have graduated from that big, important sounding school. I have earned the right to be here with the rest of y'all. And it took, again, another youngster, right? I mean, to help me see that, man, you focused on the wrong thing, right? You're ashamed because people are looking at you funny or because of where you graduated, but you are sitting at the same table they are, making the decisions that they are. So there's no difference. Even if they choose to portray one, there's no difference. That was pivotal, being young and being in a position to be able to see that, okay, get your mind right, focus on the right things, right? That was the beginning of, or at least the early start of helping me recenter my focus on things that were most important. And it took, again, I was, 22, 23. It took another 22, 23-year-old to say, you don't get it, right? You're complaining about that, but man, you're at the table, right? That's a pivotal moment that I will call out, because I think it really helped set the tone for how I viewed and perceived things, and what I allowed to distract me or not going forward, right? Allowed for a different level of focus.
Thank you for sharing that. But it also goes back to what you have shared earlier, that although the older generation may think the younger generation may not have something of value, but it was that 22-year-old person
That's right.
that helped
That's right.
you to realize that. So you can just imagine now with this current generation, maybe who are more exposed
Right.
to different information, can share
Right.
things of value, and that can be helpful. So I
That's right.
really appreciate you sharing that experience. And again, it helps us to understand that it doesn't matter what room you're in. If you're in the room, or not only what room you're in, but what your qualification or your background is.
That's
If
right.
you're in the room, it means you
Right.
have something of value to
That's right.
contribute. So
That's
it
right.
doesn't matter where you start or what you start with. You just have to see that, oh, yeah, what they may have seen something in me that I'm not even seeing in myself right now.
That's right.
But
That's
it's
right.
just for me to step up and make my
That's
contribution.
right.
I
That's
appreciate
right.
you sharing that. So this also may be a part of that pivotal moment, but what life lessons have you learned late in life that you believe is important and can benefit this current generation?
Yeah. So again, and you've mentioned a couple of times, but life experiences are just so very valuable, and the extent to which we acknowledge that everything that we go through, it sort of lays a paver, right, that along the journey for us that we learn from, whether it's something positive or something that is negative. It's a paver that we learn from. Life experiences, the best thing, and it's almost like advice you would give to your younger self, or things you would tell, is one is and you're gonna be all right, right? I mean, it's I think we spend so much time fretting and being concerned about, how things will turn out, that we miss the opportunity to focus on the work that we're actually putting in, right? And so we'll go back to just put in the work, and be comfortable with the outcome, whatever it is. Some things we have more influence or control over things than some other things, but one thing we do have the most control over, which is our effort, and how we choose to show up and how we choose to contribute. So it would be that, which is just contribute to the best of your ability. If you fail, which you're going to, just get up. You will fail, you will fall. Just get up, dust yourself off, and keep it moving, because there's something bigger and greater out there, and this is the process to get to that bigger, better thing. And I'm not talking about job title and work. I'm talking about personal growth. For any of us who can look at where we are now, just from a maturity and a growth perspective, we can see all kinds of twists and turns, things that didn't go so well, dumb decisions that we've made over time, and learned from them, right? So that it would not become a permanent derailer for us, but it would be to, just to know that, everything will be all right. Put in the work, be comfortable with the outcome, and don't hesitate to share your wisdom, your insight with others, and don't be hesitant to accept insight and wisdom from wherever it comes, right? I've just learned through experience that I've gotten great insight and advice from people who are my age, people who are older, people who are younger. And the key is I keep my door open to anywhere there's good counsel and wisdom coming from. Bring it, right? I'm open for it. I don't care where it comes from, right? Certain age groups, certain this. Now, I just want to grow. I want to learn. I want to be the best me. And I want to be in a position to share the things that I've learned with folks who can and will benefit from it. And for those who have no interest in what I have to offer, that's okay too. Then go shop somewhere else, right? That's okay. So it's being comfortable with that.
Okay. Well, that's really great, and a great reminder that we should be open to learning, and it doesn't matter who bring the knowledge, and
Right.
just to absorb, just take it in,
That's right.
and so you can become the best version of yourself, and also be willing to share what you know. Because if you know something and you keep it to yourself, who is going to benefit?
That's right.
Sometimes
That's
keeping
right.
it to yourself not even benefiting you, because
That's
we
right.
learn things and we don't even apply it, but when we share it, now we even remember something
Right.
that we learned sometime in the past, but by sharing it,
That's right.
help other people to either be motivated, to be inspired, or to be encouraged as they go on
Right.
their journey. So I really appreciate that, because sometimes we forget that we can learn from anyone, but also
Yeah.
what we know can benefit anyone. We
That's right.
have a role to play in life when it comes to impacting others. And whatever
Right.
we know, we should be able to want to share it so we can have a positive impact on other
Right.
people.
Right.
So before I ask my final question, where can the listeners find you and help support your work that you're doing to make a difference?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned this before, maybe not. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can find John Brown. There may be other John Browns, but my picture's on there. So if you're listening to this and watching this, you at least know what I look like. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm not on any other social outlets for no reason other than I'm just not. And so if folks want to contact me, I mean, they can reach me. You'll have access to my contact info. So if there are folks who really want to reach out, have follow-up conversation, I'm certainly open to that, and you can feel comfortable sharing with individuals my info. If it's a matter of me coming back to this venue to share thoughts again, I'm open to that. But really, LinkedIn is the only when folks, I kind of joke, they say, "Man, you're not on this or that." I'm not. It is for no reason other than I'm just not. LinkedIn is where you can find me. I tend to post every once in a while, both things that we're doing on the job that I'm very proud of, the work that we're doing at GEHA in the community, the programs that we initiate in underserved communities that we do specifically for Black and Brown people. We walk the talk at GEHA, and I'm really proud about that. So if you go to LinkedIn and look me up, John Brown, I'm there. You'll see me there with my typical bow ties. Here this morning, it's more casual, but like you, I tend to be dressed all the time, not for any other reason than it's the look I prefer, right? It's just how I do. So if they want to look me up there, they can get to you to get to me if they so choose, and I will do what I can to provide additional context, dialogue, or support.
Okay, man, thank you for sharing that. And also, I will put the way to connect with you in the description, so
Perfect.
they can also connect with you that way as well.
Okay.
My final question is, what impact do you want to have on the world?
Wow. What impact do I want to have on the world? In its simplest form, I just want to leave it better than I found it, right? And I know that covers a number of areas, but that's really it. I want to leave it better than I found it, right? As a Black man, I am like every other Black man. I'm multifaceted, right? So in the workplace, I want to leave a mark of being just someone who came in and worked hard, did his level best, and was content with that. Whatever comes with that, whether the role I've never set out to I want to be this role or this title. Never been my goal. It has been for me, I want to work hard and give 100% of me every day. And I'm fine with whatever happens, right? As a Black man who is a husband, I also want to leave a mark that is Black men can be good husbands, right? Can be loyal to one wife, right? Can be a model when it comes to serving and providing for his family, not just financial, but spiritual, social, you name it, right? That's the mark I want to leave. I'm a father for two daughters. I want to leave a mark where my daughters get to see when it's time for me to consider a life partner. I want to be able to look to the example that my daddy left, right? I want to be able to look to my daddy as the example, how he treated my mom, right? How he engaged with my mom as the model. Now, again, this is not about being perfect, but this is being able to establish uh, a set of rules, right? A culture within my own home that I can feel comfortable that if my daughters are going to look for a life partner, and they can say, I want to look for attributes and traits that I saw in my daddy every day, then I have done my job, right? In the community, I want to leave a mark where it is. John just showed up. John was present. It did not matter where he worked. It did not matter his title. John was present. He was available. He made time for us, the community. He gave back to us, the community, because he acknowledged that the community gave to him, right? So if I can do those things, again, not in rank order, but just those things, then I'm good. I'll take my final breath with contentment, knowing that I've done what was expected of me, and can do so with the expectation that, again, for others, if we all would aspire to just do what we can, when we can, with what we've been blessed with, then we will have done our part.
Man, thank you. Thank you. And you can just kind of hear not just the passion, but just how committed you are to be a great example from in your home, from your community, and from your work, which is great, because when people can look to what you're doing and say, I want to be like that, or I want to have the aspiration of that type of example, you are doing something. And every so often you will find people remind you that, yes, you're actually doing it. Sometimes when you even forget that you're actually making a great contribution. And I think how I came across, it's just the work that I see you're doing online. And I just saw the work online and say, you know what, I need to connect with this brother, because we need insights, we need knowledge, we need ways to navigate. And just listening to you now, which I've learned way more than what has been presented online, but just the example is really important for us as Black men in our community, in our homes, and just I will go back to what you had said first, and which I acknowledge. Just being married for 30 plus years, that in itself is a great success within our scope of how, especially how society view us, man. So I really appreciate all that you're doing and your contribution, and glad for you to be here on the Black Male Impact. I appreciate the conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you for the time to just have this conversation. I trust that those who are listening or viewing will get some benefit from it, and the extent to which our paths cross again going forward, having additional conversations. More than happy to do it. I agree with you. I appreciate that you've created this forum where Black men can come together and share things that are of mutual interest, things that we can learn from each other, things that we can take from each other to apply in our everyday lives, just to get better and to help encourage others. So thank you for creating the forum. Thank you for the invite. And I look forward to the next opportunity to engage.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. And most definitely will invite you again, because whilst having a conversation, something came to mind, which I'll share with you afterwards. But most definitely will invite you back again. And
sounds good.
Yes, thank you. And listeners, thanks for being here with us again on the Black Male Impact. As always, thanks for your support. Thanks for continuing to share, like, and give your support to what we're trying to accomplish here on the Black Male Impact. And as always, our goal is to bring guests that will inspire, empower, and educate anyone listening with the work that we're doing. And always keep supporting us here on the Black Male Impact as we continue to inspire positive change.